The bus station is a great little lot next to a small shopping center. It has basically 12 bus bays under a concrete roof. And because our council has no money, it's a bit of a dump. Their lights, but they don't all work, and there are very rarely any other workers there. So picture the scene. A 16-year-old girl enters the bus station in the evening after meeting with friends who have all gone their separate ways. There are no buses in the station. It's dark and the lights are flickering. As she makes her way across to the empty bus bay, she notices that she is not completely alone, sat across the terminal from her, occasionally illuminated by the broken lights and staring right at her, as a shabby old man wearing a long coat. As she takes her seat, he stands up and starts shuffling towards her. At this point, it is another 10 minutes until her bus is due. Her heart sinks and she goes into defensive mode. He draws closer and sits down on the bench next to her. "Are you getting a bus to blank often? Is that where you live?" he asks. He stinks. The smell of him, body odor and filth, is so strong that she can almost hear it. She can feel the smell of him radiating off, almost buzzing, and makes her ears itch and her skin crawl. Here's a few rotting teeth, a scraggly matted beard, and a stained bandage around his middle. He is clutching a plastic bag, which also smells horrible. Edging across the bench. She has no idea how to respond. "Yes, I'm waiting for the bus," she says, trying to remain polite, hoping that the bus turns up early. She cranes her head, looking around, looking for a bus driver, a security guard, anyone. All she can see is the flickering lights. "I think I'll wait with you," he says. His plastic bag is swinging back and forth. And each time the top opens, a flash of a disgusting wet smell comes from inside. A bus pulls into the bay he had originally been sat at, and she points to it desperately. "It isn't that your bus, sir." "Oh no," he replies, screaming. "I'm just waiting." She reaches into her bag and pulls out her phone. I just remembered something," she says. She decides to call her mother to come and pick her up. She will wait in the safety of a cafe nearby. She can't spend another second next to this creepy man. As she stands up, she gets a glimpse of the contents of the plastic bag. The bottom of her stomach feels as though it has fallen away, and her fingers go numb. She turns on her heels and runs to the cafe without any further pretense of politeness. Though she can hear him calling after her, she doesn't hear what he says. "It was a dead cat," she told me later. "He was sitting there holding a bloody dead cat. I never go to that bus station alone anymore." I almost forgot about this encounter, to be honest. It's been years, and my boyfriend was talking about that part of Melbourne, Springvale, which has a heavy Chinese population. I used to live there, and as a hobby, I was learning some Mandarin due to an interest in it. Understand, I only had a rudimentary understanding of it at the time. I was living in share house at the time and was traveling to my hometown down in One Bull for my birthday. I take the train down, get presents, and spend time with my family. But the real story was when I traveled back to Melbourne. I got back rather late. It was the latest train to Melbourne, and I was sure I would get home from there. My travel plans were to get off at Springvale and take a bus home from there. I didn't check the travel arrangements and cancellations. My parents had no net and my phone had none as well. So I was not aware of any bus problems. I got off at Springvale quite late, between 10 and 11 p.m., and went to the bus station nearby on the street. I noticed one guy was at the station already on his phone, but paid them no mind. While I waited, I heard him speaking Mandarin. And as I was a noob, but that language I tried to translate in my head. I was terrible at all I could understand was girl 16 and hair. I was confused at the 16, was he talking about my age or even talking about me, and I'd been mistaken for younger than like 20-something years at the time. I look much younger. Being petite is still there at the bus stop with me when 3 men walk up. He's talking to them in Mandarin. I'm waiting for the bus, and I catch some of what they're talking about. "What? What do you want, young? Take her. I'm freaking out. It's late. I'm here with people who are acting insane at this point. A bus comes by, but not even to my area. But I flag it down and get on board, still shaking. And the bus driver was concerned about me and had the decency to ask where I was going. And as his last customer, he actually drove me to my stop, and the bus was completely empty. I have no idea what those men were planning to do. And thank God that bus had come by just in time. Since then, I've actually given up on trying to learn Mandarin altogether. I'm a 16-year-old male in the UK who catches the bus daily to school from the bus station. There was one guy, an Indian with an accent in his late 20s, who would often see at the bus station, and he'd catch the same bus as me, but he kept to himself. One day I was standing at the bus station on my phone when I noticed him staring at me out of the corner of my eye. I thought it was a bit weird, but just ignored it. It kept on staring at me. So I turned and looked at him. The guy then started smiling, and suddenly did the thing where you pretend to go for someone's balls, which is funny if it's your friend, not a random dude. I was so surprised by this. I didn't even react. And after doing the fake ball grab, the dude started chuckling. By this time, I was quite weirded out. He then asked me random questions like if I knew him and stuff like that, and kept touching me on the back. The bus arrived while his hand was still in my back, and he walked onto the bus with me. This is where I began to doubt his mental health. Before I even got a chance to show my pass to the driver. The guy said to the driver, "He's the Mafia Don. He doesn't need to show the pass," and tried to usher me along to sit down. I was obviously embarrassed and quickly paid the annoyed driver while making it perfectly clear that I didn't know who this man was. I grabbed a single seat and ignored his calls, inviting me to sit next to him by making up some excuse that I was waiting for a friend. After a while, one of my friends came on and I quickly went to sit next to him whilst keeping an eye on that weirdo. Finally, the guy stopped, came whilst waiting for the bus to stop. He grabbed the phone out of a random 12-year-old's hands and started pressing random buttons. After the kid snatched back, he chuckled and touched the kid's cheek and hair. The bus finally stopped and the guy got off, still chuckling to himself. I still don't know what was wrong with that guy. And I have yet to see him on the bus again. This happened to me a few days ago. I don't usually catch the bus home from work, but my car broke down and I had no choice. It was about 6 p.m. and I was sitting reading and minding my own business in a quiet corner of the bus station, when a man came over and sat next to me. This wouldn't necessarily have been odd, but I was on the end chair in a row of 5 seats and had my arm across the chair next to mine. I had to move my arm as he sat down. He was perhaps mid-50s with baggy, scruffy clothes on. He smelled very badly of sweat. And after a few seconds, it started to make me feel sick. And then he started rubbing his hands together and mumbling to himself. Yes, yes, yes. At this point, I got up, making out that I was checking bus times, and turned the corner of the bus station to sit in a busier area. I sat on a bench facing my bus stop and settled down to my book once again. About 5 minutes later, I could see out of the corner of my eye that someone was coming over to me. I shuffled in my seat and lo and behold, it was the man again. He once again sat right next to me. And this time he was uncomfortably close. He was twitching and still mumbling. Yes, yes. And the mumbling was getting louder. The bus was late now, and I started to get freaked out. There were people around, but nothing had actually happened. So I couldn't ask for help. After a few seconds, I got up to join the queue that had started forming for my bus. The man didn't follow me, although I looked over once and I could see him looking at me. The bus pulled up and still the man didn't move. I began to breathe a sigh of relief as I turned to board the bus, safely sandwiched between 2 other people. As I had my foot on the step of the bus, I heard a scuffle behind me. I turned and the man had pushed into the queue to be directly behind me. My heart started to beat faster, and then began to think that he was actually trying to follow me. I knew if I chose a seat by myself, he would sit right next to me. So I sat next to him, and right at the front of the bus, the man sat directly behind me, and I could hear his breathing and his murmuring. I could still smell the sweat. I still needed to catch another bus. When I got off this one, my plan was just to run as fast as I could across town to the other bus stop, hoping he wouldn't follow, or at least wouldn't catch up. Luckily, I managed to run and get on the other bus just as it was pulling off. As I sat in my seat, I looked out the window to see the old man staring at me, breathing heavily as if though he was running after me. I could see his mouth mumbling to himself as he stared with dead eyes. I'm so thankful I got out of there and didn't find out what his intentions were. I had a friend that introduced me to a guy she knew on the internet, and I started instant messaging with him because she said he was a friend of a relative. A lot of my friends were talking with him at the time, and me and the friend even video chatted with him once. I had a computer in my room at this time, so I talked to him a lot more than my parents realized at the time. Well, the IMX session slowly got more sexual. He had convinced me that I shouldn't stay at my home, and then I should run away. He also convinced me to break up on my boyfriend at the time. This guy had my stupid 16-year-old self completely brainwashed. My friend that introduced me to him was also going to run away with me. And we were going to meet the guy in New York. So we arranged it so that I can spend the night at her house that night so we can run away together. That night, we sneak our stuff outside and go for a walk. We're going to walk to the bus station and get tickets on the way up there. We walk a while, but we're going to make the bus, so we loop back around to her house. At this point, she decides she isn't going to go, but convinced me that I should still go. So in the morning, I leave the note from my parents and call a taxi. It picks me up and drives me to the bus station. The driver knew something was up, and he was casually questioning me about where I was going, who I was going to meet. We got to the bus station, and I go inside to buy my ticket. I'm sitting there as the clerk is getting my ticket and ready, and my dad pulls up like a bat out of hell. To this day, I am grateful I left that note. He had a hunch that I was going to the bus station and drove so fast that his Astro van was on 2 wheels at some points. My dad gets me and my stuff and we head home. And this one I realized just how stupid I had been and break down. My parents asked me all the questions about what was going on and why. And they also call the cops. A few months go by and an FBI agent calls them wanting to talk to me and take the computer. My mom and I talked to the agent for a while, and he informs us that they believe that they have the same guy in custody right now for luring other girls to him. He showed me his photo, and I ID him as the same guy. He takes my computer, but they don't find anything on it. But a few conversations since the friend that introduced me to him had wiped it pretty good. Luckily, they didn't need me in court to convict this guy. They had some of the other girls that made it all the way to him. To this day, I am grateful that I left that note and that my dad listened to his instincts and found me before I got on that bus. I also found out that that cab driver waited outside where I couldn't see him because he figured out I was a runaway and believe he even called the cops and was waiting for them to show up. That man will always have my gratitude. And I was lucky enough that after we told my boyfriend what happened, we got back together. And we've been married for 8 years now and have a little girl, and you can bet she will never have a computer in her room. And I will tell her the story. And she is old enough. I'm a girl. At the time I was 18, going to school in Northern California. I didn't have a car. So I had to catch 2 buses to get the 20 miles to my school. I took an ADN class, so I had to catch a 7 a.m. bus transfer to get there on time. So there I am waiting at the Bay Area Rapid Transit train station waiting for the bus I'm transferring onto to arrive. I'm just sitting on this concrete bench with my headphones on by myself on a cold winter morning. This guy walks by and starts pacing in front of me smoking a cigarette, and I just ignore him figuring he's waiting for the same bus. He eventually sits next to me on the other end of the bench, which I still just brush him off as waiting for the bus. He smells kind of bad, but he's a smoker and it's public transit. And then this guy starts talking to me. Now mind you, arms, so pretending not to be able to hear him until he taps me on my shoulder, scaring the living crap out of me. So I pause my music and take out a headphone to see what he wants. And oh man, do things get weird. Now some of the specific details of the conversation I've forgotten since it's been 2 years, so bear with me. He asked me what my name is lying. I tell him it's something generic like Debbie. He starts talking about how he just got out of jail after being in there for 3 months. He didn't say why. And told me that he saw my face and a Maxim magazine while he was in. Well, crap, all aboard the crazy train. Because obviously, there was no way that that happened. He starts rambling about girls secretly wanting to be with bad guys, and said that, secretly, deep down, I wanted to be with him. Oh, God. So a guy comes along, who sees me clearly creeped out by this homeless-looking guy and engages him in a conversation to get his focus off of me. Holy Mother of God, I wanted to hug this stranger. I feel like he saved me from something unfortunate. So the bus finally shows up and I get my stuff together, the board it's, and the creepy dude tells me I should catch the next one. In the stay and talk with him. Screw that. Sorry, I have to go get to class. So I sit across from the guy that saved me and thanked him profusely, at what she just said if he saw his girlfriend sitting there being creeped out like that. He wants someone else to save her too. So thank you, kind stranger. You did me a solid. I ride public transportation. I hate it. But it's my only option right now. With the cost of college books, classes, and everything else under the sun that couldn't add the toll of gas to that long list of expenditures. I wake up in the morning and catch a bus that takes me into town. I then transferred to another bus that takes me to school. The process is reversed after school. I end up getting on 4 different buses every day. And there's many other stories I could tell about the mysterious and unusual, sometimes disturbing occurrences that happen while traveling on these magical vehicles. This technically started a few months ago, and at the time, I thought nothing of it. Once in a while, people will approach me, and we'll have a small discussion. But this didn't quite turn out like the other times. I was standing at the bus station waiting for the bus I used to go home to arrive. A short, Hispanic man, maybe around 30 to 40 years old, with a thick accent, black hair, crooked smile, and black trench coat was beaming at me about 10 feet from where I was standing. You know that feeling you get when you know someone is about to talk to you, even if they're from afar? That's the feeling I got. And I was right. A few minutes later, he walked toward me and asked where he could get a bus pass, answered his question, and he asked a few more. The bus at this point pulled in and we were on our way on board. I sat down toward the back, because it's more secluded and I like being kept to myself during the hour-long bus ride. Unfortunately, this girl whom had just started coming on thought I was cute or something on the guy and decided to talk to me the entire ride while being completely disgusting, inappropriate. The windows were foggy, so she decided to write "Boss Babe" on one of them. If that gives you an idea of how immature she is. She thought she was impressing me. That was obviously annoyed, and none of the hints I was dropping got through to her. The Hispanic man who had gotten on the same bus was sitting a couple of seats across from me, noticed the situation and laughed at me. I smiled back at him and gave him the little very funny look. She got off the bus, and thankfully, the tariff stopped there. I'm usually the last one to get off the bus. Everyone else is usually dropped off before the bus reaches its final destination near my house. I was expecting the Hispanic man to get off directly before my stop in town, where most of the people get off and either transfer to a link bus that takes him into the country or get off at the corner. To my surprise, the Hispanic man had not gotten off. Even after getting off the bus myself and my own stop, the Hispanic men remained on the bus. This is odd, considering that this is the last and final stop on the route. And the bus turns around and heads back to transfer, as this is the end of its long journey. I thought nothing of it, and a few months transpired. The girls still rode on the bus frequently and bothered me to an extent. But other than that, all had been well. I have not seen nor heard from the Hispanic man again. I had been getting unusual activity from my phone. However, my Google account keeps showing that my location is from different parts of my state or city, and search history that I've never looked up lingers in my data. I changed all my passwords, but it still persisted. I checked my device history on Google and saw that an Apple device was connected to my account. Knowing that I don't own an Apple device, I became alarmed. This unusual activity was going on and off. And I had been battling with it for a few weeks, so I decided to get a new email. I'm not sure if this relates to it or not, but it doesn't hurt to explain. Now, this is where it gets weird. A few weeks ago, I was waiting for my bus home again. Just another normal day. Nothing interesting happened. My bus pulled in and I started to get on. I paid for my ride and looked for a seat. And that's when I heard my name. "Johnny, how are you?" The Hispanic man, wearing his same black trench coat sitting in the back of the bus, said with his crooked smile. "Oh, hey," I said uncertainly. "I'm good," I replied. I was surprised, startled, and completely confused, and never gave out my name to anyone on the bus. And I know for a fact I had never given my name to him. And even if I did, it was a few months ago. How could he have remembered a stranger's name whom he barely came in contact with for months? Alerted, I sat down while he continued to talk to me. The annoying girl got on the bus and had a friend with her. They ended up sitting in front of me. The Hispanic man gave me another smile. "Hey, you're not going to go talk with your best friend?" he said to me jokingly as he talked with her friend. "No, I'm good," I said, trying to ignore him by looking out the window. There was a moment of silence for him, and I thought for sure he wouldn't say anything else the rest of the ride. I then turned to my phone and started texting my girlfriend. When out of the corner of my eye, I catch him taking a picture of me. I know what you're thinking. How do you know he was taking a picture of you? This man was sitting across 2 seats directly faced toward me on this phone held up high and pointed straight at me. On top of that, I could see in the reflection behind him that he was for sure taking a picture of me. It may have been a video for how long he held it there. I tried to hide my face. But he continued to stay like that. At least 2 or 3 minutes had gone by before he put his phone down and sat normally in a seat again. I texted my girlfriend about what was going on the moment I sent a text to her saying a crazy guy was taking pictures of me. The Hispanic man started to chuckle while looking at his phone. Almost as if though he was somehow seeing what I sent to my girlfriend from his device. "Don't worry. This is just beginning. So Johnny, where do you go to school again?" he said happily. "I'm in college." I tried to avoid giving them a direct answer. "Oh, how nice. How nice. What time to get to college?" he said with a smile. I couldn't give him any real information. So I proceeded to lie and tell him exactly when I wasn't going to be riding the bus or arriving at school around 7:30. I said, trying to seem collected and confident. "Oh, nice. Okay, so what time do you get out of school?" he said with another beaming smile. "Around 12:30, I fibbed. He continued to ask me question after question, and I proceeded to lie and lie. He honestly asked me over 50 questions in the span of about 15 minutes. I would look out the window, pretend like I'm talking on the phone, etc. But he wouldn't stop asking me personal questions. "You better stay away from the stuff," he said, leaning over toward me while taking a prescription bottle out of his coat pocket filled with illegal marijuana, flaunting it at me for a few seconds. Shortly after, the bus started slowly filling up. Each row has 2 seats, and I had my bag on the one next to me in which I wasn't sitting in the buses getting full. "I'll save my seat for someone else," he said, moving my bag out of the way and sitting right beside me. Our legs were touching. And he moved in just the right time so that every seat in the bus was filled. He then proceeded to ask me more and more questions, all personal. Someday I have a feeling of going to travel all over the world, he said, smiling at me with a subtle chuckle. I don't know what he meant by that. But you can only imagine what's going through my head. I started asking questions and gathered this information from him. In the meantime, he moved from Texas a few months ago to visit his high school friend, whom apparently lives up here. And he apparently had been applying for jobs at restaurants that we were conveniently passing at the time. For example, we would pass a Pizza Hut and then I would hear him say, I'm applying at Pizza Hut. Some of the places he mentioned were actually going out of business. I stopped asking him questions and at this point just wanted to get home. Do you have a pair of earbuds? He asked. Yet at home? I said, here, take these. He said while pulling these grungy-looking earbuds out of his coat pocket. I took a closer look and examined that they had literally been tampered with electronically. There were wires being shown and part of the casing was missing from the actual bot itself. Not to mention that they were extremely dirty. No way was I going to take those earbuds based on how weird he's been. It could have been some kind of tracking device for all I know. No, thanks, I said, trying to sound polite. Oh, okay. Okay, he said, still smiley. Would you like some candy? The man said while pulling out some unnamed candy package in a thin plastic bag. I quickly declined the offer. He kept asking me questions along the rest of the ride, such as, what's your last name? And where are your parents? Do you live with them? As we got closer to my stop, he explained that he had purchased a house. He even showed me a picture. He just bought a house in my neighborhood and literally lives next door. I told the bus driver a few days later what had happened and he immediately called the police. They apparently reviewed the bus cameras and verified that I was telling the truth. They confronted him. And I haven't heard from him since I hadn't rode the bus in a few days. And the bus driver mentioned that he was on the bus again, but at a different time. I asked him what time he had gotten on the bus. And he said at 7:30 and around noon. I have no idea what this guy was trying to do, or what he wanted from me. I'm seriously looking for answers.